Hello and welcome to Wake Up Later. This is your Wednesday wake up call. How are you all? It is Wednesday, the 12th of March, 2025. It is exactly 5 p.m. GMT on the button. No hanging around here today, people. I hope you are all well. I can already see we have a full live chat and so much the better for it. This is a powerful full moon week, which is one of those moments of truth occasions where people will be able to see not only who they are, but in turn who others are as well. And you will also get to see the truth about yourself and who you move with. And you will also discover whether you backed the wrong horse or not. Only you know the answer to that. I don't know about you, but this week has already been a blessing for me. I've already had revelations about some people. And all I can say is no matter what the planetary alignment, the truth is always a blessing. Be sure your truth can take the light or else change course now, pronto. How are you? How are you? Beautiful, beautiful people. I hope you are well. What's on Wake Up Later today? Behind the headlines. I want to go behind the headlines. The British Riots of 2011 were sparked by the killing of Mark Duggan by the Metropolitan Police. You think you know what happened? Think again. I'll be joined by Mark's cousin, Size X, to tell his perspective of the event that has decimated his family. And we'll also be joined by former Silicon Valley strategist, Mark Gober. He's the author of the phenomenal Upside Down series of 7 books spanning the topics of consciousness, politics, economics, UFOs, medicine, cosmology, and so much more. Plus, we will be looking at the Labour Party pervert, the fact that X has been hacked again, and a civil war that is obviously taking place within the Reform Party. All the usual good stuff as well. Viewer emails and live chat. We do news differently around here. And why is that? Why is that? Because someone had to, of course. How are you? Grandest of evenings to you too, Kath. How are you all? Well, what has been happening since Monday? Well, today in the British High Court, former Tory MPs, well, they're both actually Tory MPs, Andrew Bridgen and Matt Hancock, have gone head to head in the defamation lawsuit where Mr. Bridgen claims Mr. Hancock libelled him. Mr. Hancock is attempting to be granted with a summary judgment, which means the court would rule in his favour without the need to go to trial. Judging by the most recent judgment on this case, it's not looking good for Andrew Bridgen. I'm going to be honest. As a judge apparently agreed to appeared to agree rather with Mr. Hancock's tweet, which is at the heart of this case, and so kind of claiming that it didn't label Mr. Bridgen. But we shall see. We shall see. I checked just before we came on to see if there was any outcome. Generally, there isn't. Oftentimes, it can take weeks, even months to reach a judgment. But every now and again, a judge, when it comes to summary judgment, every now and again, a judge will give you the results of whether that he or she has granted a summary judgment on that day. Let me just put my teeth back in. I'm all over the place. How are you all? How are you, Jack and Greg and the Blue Nomad and Mrs. Pirate? How are you? And of course, Matt Hancock is the former Health Secretary who oversaw all of the C-19 staff. He should be up in court for reasons other than potentially defaming a colleague. Truly, he should. Absolutely outrageous that we let these people just go. Just go. And horrendous scenes from Pakistan where people have been held hostage on a train. Still got information coming in. So I don't want to comment on that too much because it's very uncertain what is actually taking place. Morrigan said that's a waste of money. You're talking about the court case between the two of them. And Ukraine ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire deal with Russia as Trump lifts his pause on military aid and intelligence sharing. In a video posted to X on Tuesday, President Volodymyr Zelensky, he kind of outlined Ukraine's 3 demands: silence in the sky, silence at sea, and the release of prisoners of war and detainees. And he said, America understands our position and accepts our proposals. Well, we shall see. We shall keep seeing if we shall see. Oh, yes, we should. Oh, yes, indeed. And the Tesla of what? Please. I'm embarrassed to even report this. Donald Trump has been busy literally turning the White House into a car parking lot. to show support for Elon Musk, whose Tesla company is tanking all around the world as people start to get to know who Musk really is. And many are not happy to see the president doing what is essentially a commercial for a billionaire donor. So on Monday, Tesla stocks experienced the biggest drop in 5 years. There are protests outside Tesla showrooms taking place around the world. And Musk is desperate to make people believe that these are paid activists funded by George Soros. Maybe some are. That would not be unusual, because it certainly wouldn't be the first time, but he should not underestimate that very real customers are sick of him. But I doubt that Trump's intervention can actually save Elon Musk or Tesla on this occasion, because the problem is the people who have bought Musk's cars are not the same people who vote for Trump. Tesla is an electric vehicle. It appeals to so-called progressives who are usually liberals and lefties. Well, they hold the purse strings on this occasion for Musk, and they are now showing him who is boss. Added to that, on Monday and part of Tuesday, Musk's X was repeatedly hacked. Repeatedly. Musk claimed that it was from Ukraine, but there was no evidence of this. And in fact, the hacktivist group Dark Storm claimed responsibility for it. They have nothing to do with Ukraine. In fact, they are strong opponents of what is happening in Israel. And we all know Musk censors X if there is criticism of him or Netanyahu or Israel. However, the hacking said the hack was not political, but a show of strength. Or the hacking group said it wasn't political, but a show of strength. Nonetheless, Elon has continued to say that this was an attack from Ukraine, despite not providing any evidence for this assertion. The thing about Elon Musk is he doesn't actually care about the truth. He literally does not. He will say what he wants, regardless of whether it's mis or disinformation. Anyone remember when he took umbrage about being pushed out of getting involved in the lads who were trapped in a cave, and he defamed the leader by calling him a paedophile? The fact is, X is an absolute unmitigated mess. Musk has a slash and burn approach to everything because he does not value human life. He's like a robot, and that is becoming ever more apparent. He sees everyone as disposable and just kind of fat to be cut away. But the level of disinformation on X now is actually untenable in the long term. He's going to prove to be the man who gets new laws placed on what we say online if we are not careful. To be clear, I believe that Elon Musk bought Twitter with the help of his various globalist handlers and associates to control the narrative, not to give people free speech. That is what I believe. Absolutely. And before we welcome in our first guest, has anybody heard about Sam Gould? Sam Gould, let me show you who Sam Gould is. Sam Gould was a senior assistant in the government and who went into schools as part of his work. Well, he exposed himself to a child on Saturday. Mr. Gould was a senior casebook worker for Health Secretary Wes Streeting until Saturday's event, in which the young girl was walking to meet friends when she saw a man, Sam Gould, and she saw him in his car performing a sex act with his trousers down. And this was Gould doing this. The girl, as you can imagine, was absolutely terrified. She ran away, but the pervert that is Sam Gould followed her. He got out of his car and followed her into a cul-de-sac where she was banging on doors for help. And the newspaper headlines are like, oh, he was just a flasher. He terrified the 13-year-old girl. And there are a lot of questions about this, a lot of questions. The Met Police charged Gould with 2 counts of indecent exposure on Sunday after linking him to a second flashing incident involving a 25-year-old woman in Hornchurch last month. He has pleaded guilty to both accounts at Barkingside Magistrates Court, and he has been released on bail until sentencing next month. Streeting said last night, "There are no words to express my horror. As soon as I was made aware of his arrest, he was suspended, and as soon as the guilty plea was entered, I took immediate steps to sack him through official HR processes. Unfortunately, bureaucratic nonsense means that local authorities do not have the power to sack councillors, and he's a councillor. Sam Gould is a councillor. So this local authority do not have the authority to sack him for breach of conduct. It's outrageous. You can imagine the victim's mum is absolutely beside herself. She said the system is flawed, and she's very angry because she feels what has happened to her daughter is being downplayed. She said nowhere in the police statements does it state that one of the victims was a child. It just says there were 2 incidents of indecent exposure. And as she quite accurately says, the real question for me is, what were his intentions? Why did he not just drive off? Why did he then get out of his vehicle to pursue her? That's what keeps playing on my mind. And you would imagine it would. As a mother, you would absolutely imagine it would. So that's what we're dealing with. This man is like literally like part of a team who are at the top of the British establishment, running our government. The Health Secretary's senior casebook worker is a filthy, disgusting flasher, and more. I don't doubt, rather. Remove him from the screen. It is scary stuff. That girl will be traumatized, Mrs. Pirate. Awful stuff. Awful stuff. And I bet we don't know the half of him. It's always the way, isn't it? It's like whatever we get an insight into, we don't know the half. Right. Talking about which, I want to talk about an important story, a story of great public interest. The British Riots of, let me just wipe my mouth. I've been spitting at this Sam Gould. The British Riots of 2011 followed the gunning down of Mark Duggan, a 29-year-old mixed race man who was killed by police in Tottenham, North London on the 4th of August, 2011. I remember it clearly as if it was just yesterday. Mark's death led to widespread riots across the UK as the many dissatisfactions that people were feeling finally bubbled over. Just to put it in context, it was the time when there was a coalition government. David Cameron was heading it up alongside Nick Clegg. Mark's death was ruled a lawful killing, and his name has been demonized endlessly by British media, and many lies have been told about him. And joining me today to set the record straight is somebody who knew Mark very well, because it's his cousin. Let's welcome him in. Here he is. Hello there, X. Can you see me?
Yes, I can, yes.
Might help if I put my earphones in. How are you? Thank you for joining us, X.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. I think this is a story that needs to be covered. I, like everybody else, read about Mark. I was told he was the scum of the earth. He was a gangster. He was all powerful. They had to take him out before he took them out. You're laughing because you know, and you're not laughing in any disrespect to your cousin. You're laughing because you know what absolute nonsense a lot of it was.
Yeah.
Let's
Propaganda.
get Absolutely. Let's get into it. You are, of course, as I say, Mark's cousin. Let's bring up an image of Mark so people can remember him. You remember him being born, don't you?
Yeah.
And so obviously you're older than him. He was 29 when he was killed, and they ruled it a lawful killing. We're going to get into that in a minute. The accounts are just absolutely absurd. But take me back to that day. What were your thoughts when you were first told what happened to Mark?
Well, if you can remember, and for the public, it was put out on the news as a shootout. Man firing weapons at police, and there's been this big shootout. So obviously people are in disarray, confusion, because of the statement that went out, which was then redacted by the IPCC and corrected. But the initial statement already is like, oh my days, no. And then when I've been told it's Mark, I was like, what? Nah, what? Nah, everything was just nah. Well, no way. And then, in your head, you're thinking, there's no way. All right, let's just put it basically like this. There's no way when you've got like 12 police officers with MP5s, submachine guns, sidearms, and shotguns. There is no way that one person is going to start a shootout. You just, it's so ridiculous. It's not, no matter how bad they paint a picture of this particular person, they're just not. They're going to put their hands up, you know. So, and the shocking thing was the way they dealt with the family.
Exactly. Let's get into that, right? The official narrative we've heard about Mark is he was a known drug dealing gangster. He had a gun. He was going to kill the police. Obviously, all heavily disputed. But let me first of all talk about the fact that you had a recording of what
Yes,
took
I did.
place.
Yes, I had a recording. That was I'm not going to say how I got it, but I got a recording from sources that were they were just finishing some flats across the road at Tottenham Hale. Yeah. And this person was just recording, just moved in. Oh, look, let's just, and happened to capture the whole thing.
And remind us what was captured.
The whole hard stop.
And Mark was in a cab, right?
Yeah. The person was only sort of like looked down when he heard all the commotion. You see what I mean? So it was really, again, because they're just filming, not expecting anything to happen right there and then, and bam, it happens. And they were, so I got the recording, I had it on my hard drive, and even up to this, I've been complaining to the DPS, and even up to January the 10th of this year, the police have said that I'm abusing the complaint system because I'm complaining too much.
Because
but they haven't dealt with the complaint in the original, 10 years ago.
Let me back that up a little bit, because your recording went missing when the police raided your house over something that was absolute nonsense.
Times,
all thrown out, came to nothing in court, right? But your hard drive went missing then, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So how frustrating.
And I've been to my house with the police 28 times and still ended up with nothing. And what happened was I got a phone call from Chinkford police station. Oh, Mr. X, could you come down? We've got your stuff. So I went down there. I was there for an hour and a half. Still, they couldn't find anything for me. And the police officer came in and he was like, what's going on? Why are you here so long? What's happening? So I've explained to him what happened. And he said, he's found my stuff in the back, in the rubbish, to be dumped, to be taken by the dump. And what I got was nothing. It weren't like 30 years of my life. It was just a load of nonsense.
It was almost like you were targeted to get that or get something. I mean, it just seems really weird, doesn't it? All the things we've heard about Mark. So let's start tackling some of these myths. He didn't have a gun. The mainstream media told us that he was this gun-totting gangster. No gun was found on his body, but a weapon was later recovered from parkland next to the scene, right? What did you do in order to be able to disprove that, because you knew it was a lie?
Yeah, well, I actually went down it. Well, first of all, let's go back to this intelligence that the police claimed to have, that he was going to pick up a gun from this so-called Foster Hutchinson guy. So for me, why didn't the police arrest them both then? This Kevin Hutchinson was supposed to be the supplier of this so-called firearm. That was, I believe they said it was a replica that had been turned into a real gun. I don't even know how they know that. But why didn't the police take the both of them at the so-called exchange, which the police claim they didn't see any exchange?
Well, but the truth is, all the people who did see stuff disputed hugely what the police had to say. The taxi driver who was driving Mark disputed what the police said. Onlookers disputed what the police said, right? And it's interesting because even given all that, they still managed to rule it as a lawful killing.
Which don't make sense.
Tell us what happened when they ruled the lawful killing at the High Court.
So when people in the courts was, they just lost it, as anybody would. Mark's mom literally kind of fell to the floor. She had to get held up. His brother just was going. I had to hold him, and his other brothers, we had to hold him, because you can only imagine. All right, you've got a police officer, Mr. Wet Wipe, I'll call him, who claims he was in fear of his life, but he's got a submachine gun, a sidearm, and he's also got a shotgun as well. And then he's got 12 of his mates or 11 of his mates that are all armed up. Now, he claims to have seen a gun, Yeah. And then, so he was in fear of his life. So he shot Mark twice. So when he shot Mark twice, this is what he said on the stand. He then said, I proceeded to go to the body and check his waistband. So why would you check someone's waistband if you said you saw a gun in the possession of the person? For instance, Mark Duggan. Why would you say that? You would then you would know exactly where the gun is because you've dropped the person and you will see the gun in his hand. You wouldn't go and check a person's waistband. And this was said in court. And even the barrister, Michael Mansfield, he was like, he said, this is utterly unacceptable. Because even that statement alone in the Royal Courts of Justice just made everybody get a bit, not happy.
It's hard.
And then you just think, well, what's that? You also got the coroner complaining to the IPCC saying, why are the lawyers not allowed to give me some witness statements? Right. This is another thing that there was a lot of stuff that was going on that none of it makes sense because Mark, like, all right, here's a thing. David Bieber, who shot 3 police officers and murdered 1 police officer, Ian Broadhurst, yeah. When he was found, that's the guy. When he was found, he had 200 rounds and the 9 Glock that he used to shoot the 3 officers and murder PC Broadhurst. They didn't shoot him. Yeah. So what's going on there? And this was here in Leeds. Mark Duggan hadn't shot anybody. He didn't have a gun that was apparently thrown out of the taxi and landed 20 feet away, over the fence on the grassy knoll, as I call it, because I went down to the scene and I got my tape measure out and nothing made sense.
And it still doesn't make sense, which is why you and I are talking about it today. So he wasn't the big kingpin. I mean, you even said to me that he didn't have this like lavish lifestyle or a big kingpin. Somebody else actually paid for his funeral.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So if he, and then, well, if he was this big kingpin, why would he, why was he not flagged up? Why was he not on the MI6s? Why was he not on MI5? Why was he not on Britain's Most Wanted? We're looking for this man.
Right.
The term Tottenham man then is just a term for a group of guys and girls just chilling. Peckham man then, Bricky man then. It's just a terminology. It doesn't mean that they're a gang. You're just hanging out with your mates. Sorry.
So, no, I beg your pardon. It's that old thing, isn't it, that I've always heard, and that is a group of white friends walking together are friends. A group of black males walking together are a gang. And that is often how the police see it, isn't it? So let's address the elephant in the room, right? The Metropolitan Police has long been recognised in official reports as being institutionally racist. The Macpherson report into the police handling of the death of Stephen Lawrence absolutely ruled that the Metropolitan Police, who killed your cousin, was and is probably still almost certainly institutionally racist. Do you maintain that Mark's killing was a racist killing, X?
Yes, I do, because again, institutional racism within the police and within society, unfortunately, because no one is born a racist. Yeah, nobody is born. You're not born and then all of a sudden to be racist. It's happened to me at the age of 13. I had a shotgun pointed at me and the person told me they're going to kill me to get out of my country. And I was born here, so I'm English, so I know all about firsthand being threatened because of the color of my skin. And I remember saying to myself, wow, my skin must be powerful for someone who wants to kill me for it. Yeah. Or, but yeah, it's something that is bred. I've experienced it with the police as well. And it's not all police. Unfortunately, those police officers that are good are being just covered over by the negativity and the corruption and the nonsense that the police carry on with. And they've been doing it for years and years and years. And if you don't stand your ground, with my own experience, I was knocked over right outside Liverpool Street Police Station, right outside the City of London Police Station. I was knocked over. There was 2 police officers see me get knocked off my bike. They were looking at me. And when my boss come, he even went over and spoke to them. He was calling them racist and everything like that. And they drove off. And when it come to going to court and everything, the 2 police officers said they didn't see me. And they did, and it was, I won the case in the end because I kept on and kept on. And what happened, and I literally spoke to the Assistant Commissioner of the City of London Police. That's how far it went, because I wouldn't stop writing letters. And what happened was I got a letter from the City of London Police straight up. You're not going to believe this. It said, a person has a right to drive in an unaware manner. Yeah. So what I said was, I'm going to go down to the man that knocked me over, and I'm going to wait for him to come out, and then I'm going to run him over. Then I'm going to call you and say, I've run over the man, but don't bother about it because I was driving in an unaware manner.
That's right. You were just being unaware, weren't you?
That's right. So I had a meeting. They called me up, blah, 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 blah. Long and short of it. I've even put a little video of it. I was paid 10 grand, just under 10 grand.
It's
the whole family to Florida. But it also showed me how, again, this is that institutional race.
How the system works.
How the system works. And there's another thing. I was a teenager. I got caught with a gravity knife. Yeah, I had to go to court. I got fined £75 and paid £25 court costs. And my mate, who happens to be a lighter colour than me, he had a Bowie knife. They just took it from him, just to give him a slap, and off he went. He didn't even get arrested.
I mean,
that shows you again what we did.
Exactly. We know there's disparities, and this is so painful in so many respects. I mean, you were close enough that you, as a photographer and a videographer, you took pictures, christening pictures of one of Mark's children, I think, didn't you?
Yes, yes, at the christening, yes, for his daughter. Yeah, you know, I was like, you know, obviously there was a family member and everything, but because I do photography, I said, I'll do your pictures for you, you know. And then there was this picture that they put in the newspaper. And what they've done is they cut the picture, and so it looks as if he's a bit angry, and then they put their little propaganda speech spin on it, and then when you see the full picture, he's actually holding up like a plaque for his daughter in the cemetery. But we see the way they spin it, people are going to go, yeah, look, the gangster, blah 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 blah, drug dealing scum, blah blah blah, because again, the amount of abuse and racist abuse that I saw being put up about Mark, I was like, and he's mixed race, you know.
Exactly, which was it was always, wasn't it, black kid from Tottenham, that whole thing as well. How has this impacted your family?
Oh, it's obviously, you know, it's devastating to them all, and it's I can't answer for them, you'd have to speak to them, but you know, I just put myself in that situation, and I don't know what I would be doing. I can't even say, because for me, V53 should be charged with murder and the murder of the 5 people or 4 people that died within the riots. He should be charged with affray, causing riots and all sorts of things, because he could have easily put handcuffs on Mark Duggan and no one would have known who Mark Duggan was.
V53 is the code for the officer who shot Mark, right?
That's right, yes. Who
he said
he was in fear of his life, and also claimed that he saw a gun and a trigger arm. I don't know how you know, and then you're searching someone's waistband after dropping them. It don't make sense.
How do you deal with this, though? Because it's like this gone down in history that this is the way it all went. This is who Mark was. And there are people in the comments who are saying, I've never heard any of this before. Well, no, you wouldn't. That's the whole point, because mainstream media crafted a narrative. They wanted you to believe that he was feckless, that he was utter filth, that he actually deserved to die. That's
and no one deserves to die. This is why I brought up the guy David Bieber, because he actually murdered a police officer when he didn't even have to.
Right.
And they didn't kill him.
Right.
They just arrested him. You know, so, and there's a whole load of other, you know, you've got the Crays, you've got the Richardsons, you've got the Adams family, all sorts of gangsters from Canning Town. They haven't shot any of these people.
Right.
They've just done it. So Mark was, again, they said he was on his way to commit a crime. He was going home to eat some food. And again, it's like, well, how can you actually know that?
Yeah.
Again, you know, you've got the stop and search. Well, I'm stop and searching you because what? Am I committing a crime, or I'm about to commit a crime? Well, you look like you're going to commit a crime, you know, because you're black.
So painful. Exactly. So painful. Mark's dad died a year after him, didn't he?
That's right. Yes, my uncle. Yeah. You
Probably
know,
from a broken heart, in part, I should imagine.
Well, the other thing is as well. Now you've got to also take into consideration, yes, the end result was they said it was a lawful killing. I took an independent complaint out about that incident and said, is this right that the police can literally kill someone and say it's a lawful killing? I didn't say I was related to Mark, because I'm just coming from the, I'm a member of the public. Because when you think about it, it's pretty scary that you can be shot because they think you're going to do something.
Right.
But they haven't got those, because up to this day, where's the proof? Where is the proof that Mark was going to, who was he going to shoot?
Right.
And then with what? There's no gun. He had no, they even said there was no gun residue on him or anything. Well, there wouldn't be because he didn't have a gun.
Exactly. X, what do you absolutely want people to know before you leave us this evening?
I want people to, first of all, go and have a look at the police oath. And then also go and have a look at the police code of conduct in regards to firearm officers. And I think they'll have a different viewpoint, because you'll have a lot of people going, yeah, well, he deserved to die, the drug dealing scum. You got that? Because I said that because I've read that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and that's where you just know, people are very misinformed.
Yeah.
And, people say, oh, well, the police were doing their job. Well, murdering someone without, information, factual information, is not doing your job as a police officer.
No,
You're
it isn't.
supposed to protect the public, not murder the public.
Absolutely. John from Coventry said it's murder, pure and simple. And I have to agree as well. I'm absolutely aware that a court of law has found to the contrary. But we are allowed still to have opinions in this world, I do believe. I don't think that's been outlawed yet. X, thank you so much for joining us today. I do truly appreciate it. Not at all. We have to do everything we can to raise awareness to the truth of this story, because they've set their narrative now. Everybody, this is Size X, and he is, as you have heard, the cousin of Mark Duggan. May Mark rest in peace. Take care, X.
Yes, rest in peace. Thank you very much, Sonia, for having me.
Pleasure.
You.
Take care. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.
The thing, what we do around here is we like to, first of all, I think it's really important for us to look at how alternative narratives are crafted. And I always look at legacy media. I spent 30 plus years in legacy media. I know how narratives are crafted. I know that Mark Duggan was demonized, but it's such a huge public interest story, even 14 years on, because that literally led to the biggest riots in UK history, some of the biggest riots. And they've never got to the bottom of it. And so there you go. That is Mark's cousin, who was here to tell us what was going on. And institutional racism UK, says London Lady. Well, we know for a fact that Metropolitan Police is institutionally racist, because that was revealed in the Macpherson report. Nothing has changed. Sadly, nothing has changed. Right, let's shift the tone to something altogether more uplifting and positive. I want to talk to somebody who I only discovered very recently, but here he is. His name is Mark Gober. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
Hi, Sonia. I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. You are, of course, an author. You're a podcaster. You're a former partner in a Silicon Valley technology group. You're a former investment banking analyst. You're the creator of the 7-part Upside Down series. You cover everything in it, from the nature of reality and consciousness to medicine and the Great Reset. I'm so impressed with you, Mark. You're literally a recent find, and I've been listening to your podcast. I've ordered some books, and I'm just so impressed with where you're coming from, because I think, as I've mentioned to you briefly earlier, it is the huge change in your life that has impressed me so much. All of those things that you were formerly doing, but then you had this incredible paradigm shift. I think it was in 2016, right? Tell us about it.
Correct. Well, I appreciate the kind words, Sonia. It's been a major transformation for me, and it's still very much in process. But like you said, I had a mainstream background. I went to Princeton for my undergrad. I was a competitive tennis player, one of the captains of the tennis team, investment banking in New York during the financial crisis, and then moved to Silicon Valley and was really focused on this climbing the ladder, doing well professionally. That was the way I looked at life. And I wasn't interested in the topics that I now look at. I used to have a worldview that life is random and meaningless, and that we can create meaning in our own lives, but we're really just making it up. And all that shifted for me when I started to come across scientific evidence that I didn't know existed around the nature of consciousness, but it's really expanded since then, where I've now looked at politics, medicine, cosmology, like you said. And what I'm learning, just to generalize it, is that so many of the things that I was taught and that we are collectively taught are based on very shaky foundations. And when I examine the assumptions of the things we're told, I'm realizing, wow, there's not much substance here. And it is pretty mind-blowing, because when I started, Sonia, I wrote my first book, An End to Upside Down Thinking, while I was still working at my firm in Silicon Valley.
Wow.
I thought I was done, and that was my book, and I was going to keep it with my career. But it has unraveled into this exploration into other areas. And I left my firm about 5 years ago to continue this.
I mean, it's such a huge sea change. I'm not even entirely sure where to start, really. What was it that led to that exact shift, though? Because it's quite hard, isn't it? You're in this very comfortable job, a series of comfortable jobs, presumably paying very well, leading a very decent lifestyle. When people lead that kind of decent lifestyle, they're not always forced to question the kind of meaning of reality or existence. So what was it that sort of pushed you over the edge, do you think?
Well, I think we should examine that word comfortable that you said, because I thought about that a lot.
Right.
It was comfortable in that it was very secure. And I was on a great path where I could see stability, but yet internally I was feeling very conflicted. Like I wasn't doing something that had deeper meaning. Like there was some kind of purpose that I was not fulfilling, and I didn't know what that was. So it made the ups and downs of life increasingly difficult to deal with. It felt like being on a treadmill, and I almost was like a zombie by the time 2016 hit. I was just turning 30. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And at that time, I was not looking for something new explicitly, but I just became curious, started listening to podcasts, alternative health shows, and it opened my mind to some ideas, which eventually led me to start reading books. So I think there was probably something existential within me that did not feel comfortable, even though externally it looked comfortable.
I've got you. And your first one, of course, was An End to Upside Down Thinking. And that actually almost immediately won you the Best Science Book of 2019, IPPY Awards. Excellent stuff. Brilliant first response to your books. And it's so a lot of it, let's kind of tackle this, because there is a progression through your titles, isn't there? There's a clear progression. And right at the start, I mean, I'm not claiming to have read them, but I've got a good idea about them now. But right at the start, it's almost like you're starting to explore the territory. So talk to us about An End to Upside Down Thinking, because I think what that did was it set in motion what was going to follow.
Yeah, it's interesting. My publisher named Bill Gladstone from Waterside Production, sadly, he recently passed away. But when I reached out to him, I was not an author. I had a manuscript, but I wasn't planning on being an author. And he said, I love this, but the title of the book should be An End to Upside Down Thinking. And he, as an experienced person in the publishing world and having seen so much in life, he knew that there would be more and that there was this upside down theme. I didn't realize it at the time, but the notion of upside down thinking in this first book relates to the nature of consciousness, which sounds very abstract, I know, but consciousness is fundamental to our lives, because right now, if we didn't have a consciousness, we wouldn't be able to experience this conversation or even ask questions about what we're doing here or ask questions about what's happening in the media or politics. So we need to have a consciousness in order to experience life. And what I didn't appreciate until my research began was that science and philosophy do not have a good understanding of consciousness or where it comes from. And that might sound strange, because we know from neuroscience that there's stuff happening in the brain clearly, and it's correlated to our conscious experience. Like, let's say you damage one part of the brain that's responsible for vision, the person's consciousness shifts. So the scientists often claim, well, we think the brain is producing consciousness. And the problem is that correlation does not always equate to causation. In the same way that if you see firefighters at the scene of a fire, you could conclude that the firefighters caused the fire incorrectly.
Right.
And
right.
So there's some logic here. And what I get into in the book, in short, is that maybe the brain is not producing consciousness, but it's like an antenna receiver or a filtering mechanism or an interface. And our consciousness is well beyond our body. And there's scientific evidence in this direction suggesting that maybe our body is a vehicle or a vessel, and an afterlife isn't so crazy. And psychic phenomena, which we know from the US government has been declassified, that's been going on, that these things are actually not paranormal. It's part of our reality. So this was the big aha moment of, whoa, I have to rethink my identity.
Oh, wow, that is a huge thing. I mean, I'm very fortunate in many respects. I grew up with my mum was a medium. A lot of this stuff isn't kind of like new to me, but for you, it would have probably been huge. That kind of penetrating of your consciousness of what was really taking place. Like you say, you were covering in the first book from psychic phenomenon, near-death experiences. I think you've also covered in there as well. All of these things that are often like greeted as if they're woo-woo by people. What did you discover about these phenomena?
I was stunned to realize that there is scientific evidence for this. And it's been done by credible scientists and doctors all over the world for many decades, in addition to traditions from around the world that have talked about this for a long time. But more recently, scientists have been running studies. And I'm actually now on the board of directors of an organization called the Institute of Noetic Sciences. It was founded in 1973 by Dr. Edgar Mitchell, an Apollo 14 astronaut. And so it's 50 years worth of peer-reviewed science looking at telepathic abilities and energy healing and lucid dreaming, mind-matter interaction. And the scientists are following the scientific method because they know the skeptics will be coming after them naturally. And yet they've been able to show so many results. And this is just one organization. There are many other researchers too. I just had no idea. I thought that I had a pretty good education and there was no one in my network that even was aware of this stuff.
I think what's really interesting is it seems absolutely evident to me through all of the books that the idea is to expand human potential, to make us everything that we're capable of being, because we're so stunted, aren't we? I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's such a tiny percentage of our brain that we're using. I truly believe that if we actually use more, we'd probably be able to levitate and do more besides. But, that kind of restriction of humanity is something that you appear to be wanting to break free from in this first book. You say this book aims to shift our collective outlook. That's a big ask.
Absolutely. It's a worldview shift. It's a shift in the way that we look at reality, but also the way that we look at ourselves. And what you're alluding to is exactly what I'm aiming for myself. And when I share with others is that it's an empowering perspective, that there's so much untapped potential within each human being that we're just not taught about in the modern era. And once we shift our consciousness, what I find in myself and many people who have gone on this path too, it's almost like the door cracks open a little bit. And once that happens, it's the first domino and things start to accelerate. There's almost no turning back. You can't unsee or unhear this stuff. And then once one's consciousness shifts, life priorities shift, and then life circumstances shift.
How does your life feel now in contrast to your previous life?
It feels more authentic. It felt previously like I was pushing through, and I got very good at pushing through, but it became more and more intolerable. So what I would say also is that I'm less capable now, or it becomes more intolerable for me to be inauthentic now. Like I'll feel it physically in my body, might even get sick. I'll feel the chest tightness. So now I follow the things that I'm passionate about, and I'm less concerned. I'm not perfect at this, but I'm relatively less concerned about what other people think. And each book I write, as you and your audience might find, they are more and more controversial. And I have to ask myself, can I really publish this? Can I talk about this? And then I reason, Mark, you've done it. You've cited all your sources, and this feels like the right thing to do. And I decided to do it.
Really vital. Time won't allow us to go through each book, which is more's the pity, but we can look at some of it. So the next one following that was An End to Upside Down Living, where you were asking what drives all of your life's priorities, values, and decisions. These are, again, huge questions, aren't they? Or rather, they're small questions to big answers. What did you conclude?
Yeah, so this was a natural follow-on to the first book, because the first book, An End to Upside Down Thinking, and there's a corresponding podcast series still available called Where Is My Mind? Just 8 episodes. And so the follow-on naturally is, well, if we have this new view of consciousness and who we are, how does one think about living life? And that's what the book is about. So to me, it's about almost like reorienting a compass. And once we set a compass, it's a direction for where we live. I didn't have a compass previously. I was just going through the motions. All I knew was how to try to achieve and win. That's what I cared about. And now I definitely want to achieve, but I have a deeper sense of purpose and meaning behind it, which I think is around the evolution of our individual and collective consciousness within society, so we can have a better, more prosperous, freer, and happier, more joyful life.
I really like that whole idea about, and I believe that's what you've experienced, the whole idea of you feeling more your authentic self now, because you're stripping away layers that has been placed on you since birth, and you're finally finding out who you are and what matters to you. The next book after that, I think, is really important, and I think my viewers would consider it really remiss if I didn't ask you about it. An End to Upside Down Liberty. We always talk around here about how politicians are not the answer, right? This very much tackles that. It's about how society can be organized. I don't claim to have the answer to that, although I know that the model as it stands is not working. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Well, I must say that this was a big shift for me. This book, An End to Upside Down Liberty, was published in 2021. And prior to that, I was focused on these more philosophical questions related to consciousness. And I felt a lot of trepidation before the publication of this book, because I knew that there were many people in my audience that might not like me anymore. As we all know, politics is a polarizing area. And I was right that there were some people that got very upset, but a lot of other people were very happy with it. The basic idea is that the way we do government around the world is known as statism. That's the technical term. It is inherently tyrannical and is actually in violation of natural law if we look at the science of spiritual phenomena. So I look at an alternate way of thinking about structuring society that's much more in alignment with what's known as the golden rule of trying to treat people well because we're interconnected in some way, which I think is actually validated by science, which means we need much more freedom. The term that I use, many others have used this as well, is known as voluntarism, where when we engage with any party, that there should be mutually agreed upon contracts, explicit contracts, versus the social contract we have with governments and this implied consent. I would love to see what the social contract is. I've never actually seen what we all apparently agreed to. Right. But there are big problems with the way we do government. We have basically a political monopoly that has an ability to define morality for us, and it's essentially legalized coercion.
Especially over the last 5 years, we've seen it so clearly, which you also tackle. But the next book after that was An End to Upside Down Contact. And that's about, is there life out there? And I gather, I think I know where you're coming from. There's an arrogance to us thinking that we're the only creatures in existence, isn't there? And you don't believe that for a second, do you?
No, I don't know exactly how it works. I would say this is the topic that confuses me the most. And in the book, I tried to just lay out what's there and allow readers to decide for themselves. But the reason I wanted to tackle that is that I feel like there is this spiritual war of dark versus light, of forces that we're all experiencing, especially it came out so clearly in 2020. But that's what the book looks at, not just UFOs, which is part of what I look at because it's such a question topic these days, but also the multidimensional forces that people talk about when they go on psychedelics or have a near-death experience or a meditation experience. They talk about these energies or beings, and some are benevolent and others are not. And this has been talked about for many thousands of years. So I just explore what might be the forces involved. And it really relates to this topic of liberty, because we've structured society in a way that I think has this inherent bent towards tyranny. Is that because maybe there's some forces that navigate us there? And that's what I try to get to in that book.
Oh, and I think I have to bring this onto the stage. An End to the Upside Down Reset. Of course, this is very much about WEF. We talk about it a lot around here, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, all kind of kicked off in many respects, although WEF has been around kind of forever and a day. But most of this all kicked off around C19. Obviously, we're on YouTube. We have to be very careful. The draconian policies still exist on here. But why did you feel the need to do this particular book, Mark?
Well, in 2020, there was this formal announcement of the agenda that you named from the WEF. And I had heard from many people that, oh, this is just some kind of right-wing, fear-based narrative. And when I read the book by the WEF, it's called COVID-19, The Great Reset. This is an actual book. I said, wow, this is an explicit plan for society that's very much against freedom. It's very much anti-human, viewing human beings as parasites that need to be controlled rather than beings that are free and prosperous. And I noticed that a lot of people that I respect a lot from my network, as you can imagine, coming from New York finance and Silicon Valley, lean left. And these are people that mean well very often. So part of what I do in the book is break down the psychology of that ideology and show how compassion can be weaponized, in the hopes that, I know your audience probably will love this book, but also your audience members probably have friends who you can identify with around what I just said. They mean well, they just have only been exposed to one area of the media or one area of education. And if they knew these other things, maybe they would realize there's more to the story.
And the next one after that, of course, followed on quite naturally from C19, an end to upside down medicine. And obviously, we've been completely reliant, haven't we, on the medical model in order to heal ourselves. But you contend that modern medicine totally misses the mark. I think that will resonate with a lot of people around here.
Yes, I'm going to be very careful with my language because we're on YouTube.
Yes. Yes.
But your audience knows what's happened since 2020 and the things that have been pushed on us. And often those ideas are pushed as if they're fact by the medical establishment and by politicians. And what I did in that book is looked at doctors and others who have questioned the foundations of the allopathic approach and why we're believed to get sick and what the appropriate remedies are. And I was really shocked to find that I think we're in the wrong direction. And we need to be much more holistic in our thinking, look at the effect of environmental toxins, but also the effect of our consciousness on our health. And how much is stress, or what are known as like conflict shocks? This is a concept in German New Medicine. There are so many areas that are often unexplored because the mainstream paradigm likes to look at exclusively physical causes. And there's a lot more to the story.
Absolutely. And the final in the books series is an end to the upside down cosmos. Now, scientists tell us that 96% of the universe is unexplained dark matter and dark energy. They do. They don't tell us a great deal else, though, do they, about it? What did you discover?
Oh, my goodness. This one really shocked me. This one came out a few months ago. But 96% of the universe, according to mainstream physics, is this stuff that is not known. It's basically plugged in, dark matter and dark energy, but it needs to be there under mainstream science because it props up an entire body of physics that's been there for a long time. However, starting in 2012, and this has been enhanced since then, an astrophysicist in Germany named Pavel Krupa at the University of Bonn and his colleagues have falsified dark matter with more than 5 sigma confidence, meaning more than 99.99%. The problem is that this leads to a cosmological house of cards, because if dark matter is not what we think, and it might not even exist, that has impacts on how we view gravity and Einstein's theories, which means we might need to rethink all of physics and cosmology, which for me actually makes sense because physicists don't think about consciousness as being a fundamental thing or something that could affect reality, because physicists like the physical. Consciousness is not. But when we incorporate consciousness and question physics, a whole new cosmology emerges.
This is such a huge change that you've experienced, actually. How have your family and loved ones adapted to this? Because it must be quite different for them from the Mark who was in Silicon Valley to the Mark who is here now in 2025. Have they adapted well to it?
For the most part, I've been very lucky that friends and family have been generally supportive, but not everyone is interested in what I'm doing. And that's understandable. It's just not in alignment with the way they look at life or the things that they prioritize. So some people might be aware of what I'm doing and say, generally speaking, Mark, good job, but not even realize the content. And there are some people who are upset with me who, because I've gone down different rabbit holes, they might agree with one thing I've done, but not another. And that's just how life goes. I can't worry about what people think quite as much.
Do you have thoughts on individuals? Many people believe that Elon Musk, as one example, is almost like either the second coming or the Antichrist. It's almost difficult to find out, a kind of steady thought about Elon Musk. Do you have any thoughts about him?
Something I've tried to do in this exploration is not put myself in the minds of other people, because I really don't know. And from what I've known of people in my network who might be highly successful and have a very good intention, they might think they're doing the right thing. Yeah. And yet the causes they support are harmful. So I'm not sure where Elon Musk is on all this stuff. I think what he's done with Twitter/X is incredible, just if we look at that, because how much freedom of speech do we have relative to 2020, where certain things in the 2020 election, like the Hunter Biden laptop, now everyone talks about that. That was being censored. So I think what's happening on X in terms of free speech is a relative improvement. I know there are people who can relative improvement, but there are concerns with the transhumanism and Neuralink and other issues with AI. So I'm not sure what to make of all of it. I don't have a definitive opinion, but I just sit on the sidelines and just try to watch objectively.
And do your thing. Most importantly, tell us a little bit about your podcast, of course, because that's another way that you're expressing yourself.
Yeah, my podcast series, it came out in 2019. It's called Where Is My Mind? And I was lucky to partner with Blue Duck Media. I have an old friend there. And so they tried to make these abstract concepts very digestible. I interviewed many scientists, near-death experiencers. So this is meant to be a bingeable thing where you can, in like 4 to 5 hours, listen to the whole thing and really get caught up on consciousness.
We love it. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful talking to you. I'm absolutely buzzed by your work. I think it's so exciting in so many respects. And as I say, because your start was completely contrary to this. I come from a hippie background. You kind of expect me to be interested in this stuff. So thank you so much for being with us, Mark, everybody. This is Mark Gober. I will make sure that there are links in the show notes below so you can explore him and his incredible work yourself. Take good care of yourself, Mark. Yes, indeed, he is brilliant, Peel. He's brilliant. Take good care, Mark. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Sonia.
Lovely to have you with us. He's brilliant. I think he's fresh and I think he's original and I like it. Thank you, Mark. Great guest, says Lisa. Kids, it's 6 minutes to 6. Right. Somebody asked me earlier, and I think it was Ian, about Lucy Letby. Right. Let me just say this to you guys. Let me just find it. This Monday, the 17th of March, I am going to attempt a live stream from outside the Thirlwall inquiry, which is the inquiry into Lucy Letby. There is a protest that's going to be there. I have no way of knowing at this point whether the live stream will be achievable or not, but I will absolutely give it my best shot. It won't be from 9 a.m. It will be from 10 a.m. GMT. The aim, as I say, is to stream live. And if anything doesn't allow me, then so be it. But I will give it my best shot. And if not, I will still be filming the event and that will be uploaded to my channel. And for anybody who's planning to be there, it's the free Lucy Letby protest outside the inquiry. It's starting at 9:13. It's outside Liverpool Town Hall, High Street, Liverpool, L2 3SW. And that has been organised by the Partisan Defence Committee of Britain. And I'm going to give it the best shot. London Lady and Jan, I'm going to give it my absolute best shot. And before I leave you today, really, I'm falling over, I'm stumbling over my words. It must be the full moon, kids. Like, I'm completely stumbling over all my words today, but c'est la vie. No way back for Rupert Lowe, it would appear. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Rupert Lowe. The attacks on him are actually quite astonishing now. He's great Yarmouth MP. He was suspended last Friday over allegations of bullying and of verbally threatening party chairman Zia Youssef. The latter is the subject of a police investigation. Mr. Lowe denies any wrongdoing. He says he is the victim of a witch hunt after he dared to criticise Nigel Farage and the leadership of the Reform Party that Nigel Farage leads and that Mr. Lowe was formerly a member of. And now Nigel Farage has ruled out allowing Rupert Lowe back into Reform UK. Nigel Farage said there's no way back for Mr. Lowe after they've got into another huge argument after Rupert Lowe accused senior figures within Reform of trying to silence him when he spoke out about grooming gangs. Mr. Lowe has revealed that he refused to delete a demand that the families of Asian grooming gang members be deported if they were complicit in their crimes against teenage girls. It was from a speech that he'd made in Essex in February. And Nigel Farage accused Mr. Lowe of pandering to Elon Musk. And obviously, Elon Musk had originally come out saying, I support Nigel Farage, I support Reform. I'm considering giving them, I think it was 100 million. It was a huge amount of money. And then he met Nigel Farage and he did what many people do once they've met Nigel Farage. And he said he didn't believe that Nigel Farage was the person to be leading Reform. And so he kind of withdrew his support, but he started to show his interest in Rupert Lowe. And I think that's what kicked it all off. I think that is exactly what kicked it all off. And Nigel Farage said, basically, what is happening here is Rupert Lowe knows there's no way back. He's out to cause maximum destruction and damage, not content with now being under investigation by the Metropolitan Police, not content with the fact that the independent KC has already publicly rebuked him for not respecting due process and for openly lying about his conversation with the KC. He's now out to pretend that he's the only person who wants to deal with the Pakistani rape gangs. I've campaigned strongly on this for years. And it's a completely false assertion. The idea you can deport whole communities who have British passports is just not possible under British law and never was. Yes, well, Rupert Lowe is definitely a people pleaser. Of that, I'm in no doubt whatsoever. But the fact is that Nigel Farage is failing miserably to convince people that people shouldn't be backing Rupert Lowe. So it's going backwards and forwards. It all looks really ugly. And then Ben Habib, who was formerly in Reform, he's also, kind of putting his oar in as well. And everybody's having to go about it. And it's all just kind of kicking off. But for me, none of this is new. People are suddenly waking up to what a snake Nigel Farage is. I have a long history of calling him out. In fact, I even went so far as to cancel a last minute dinner invitation when I was told that he was going to be there. I was not prepared to be in an intimate environment with someone like him and have it kind of live on my record forever and a day. I was not prepared to gamble my own good reputation on aligning with a man like him, because I have always known that Nigel Farage has always been in it for himself and that he is a state actor. And I wasn't prepared to be part of that in this intimate dinner environment where there was only like 8 people invited to it. I thought, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. No plane station, obviously not only, but those I've literally just quoted straight from Nigel Farage's words. It's 6 o'clock, people. It's 6 o'clock. Thank you as ever. Let me just remove this from the screen. Thank you as ever to our wonderful donators, Peter B, Farrell, Catherine S, Carl L, and Louise W. If you have kindly sent me a super chat, which some of you have, and I really, really appreciate it. I don't have your email address, but if you would like a copy of February's behind the scenes video, please email me at soniapoulton@sky.com. And your time flew, Jackie. Yes, it did. How's my 2 wonderful mods? How are they? I hope they're all right, people. Just want to say on this Wednesday, being happy never goes out of style. Have a fabulous Thursday, everybody. Don't let anyone rain on your parade. Excuse me. And no matter what you are going through this full moon week, know that nothing is permanent, and recall the great words of the great Maya Angelou, who said, "And still I rise." Rise up, and I will see you Friday for Wake Up, streaming live from 9 a.m. GMT. You are all truly wonderful, and I love you to bits wherever you're watching this, whether you're watching it live or on playback. Thank you, Ficus. Thank you so much. And thank you, Fred. And yes, Fran, us old hippies have to stick together. Indeed, we do. Love to you all, everybody. I will see you Friday, and hopefully then my words won't be sticking together and I won't be tripping over my words. Love to you all, everybody. Take care. See you Friday.